Hey Laura, how's it going? Name is Yoni, I'm also in class 5. Just wanted to drop by your workspace from last week and have a look, as you commented in the news section. You got some great work here. I really like, the mods that you've made for Bishop. They look really, really, really cool. And yeah, I like also the way that you deliver the line and, all this little plan for the animation. Gross, cute, and funny, all at the same time, which is really cool. Um, I think kind of like on general notes, just kind of like looking at your scene a little bit. It's a bit pointless at this stage to kind of like comment about layout, but I think that like the distance between the two characters in the first shot doesn't really kind of like help kind of like sell the relationship between the father and son because they're just a bit too far apart. You'd almost want him to be nearer, sitting like on the side of the bed next to him or something. It's not a point that you can address now, but maybe for class 6 that's something that you can actually, maybe incorporate when you come back to this shot. And all the rest of the camera angles kind of like work well. The only thing in shot number 3 that you've got here where you're focusing actually on the kid over there, it almost would be like a good idea to actually pull the camera back a little bit and actually just see the top of the dad's kind of like, the top of his back as he's leaning under the bed, just in the kind of like the lower quarter of the right hand side of screen, just because it keeps him connected, with what the scene's going on, with the scene, and it keeps them both in the same space, because it's kind of like the idea of filming is just like, just enhancing kind of like that idea of that relationship and that connection between both of the characters. And I think it works better if you can always see a little bit of both in every single shot that you have. But again, that's one of the things, that you can do also at a later date. But I think in shot 3, you can probably pull the camera back and get that to work. So really looking at your polish, which is what's important for this week, I love the poses of both of the characters, at the beginning. I like the way that he's kind of like a bit scared. The thing that's a bit weird is that frame 15 on the boy, there's this little movement with the leg that he's kind of like coming up to frame 34, and it's kind of like this little tiny movement, which I'm not sure if he's trying to actually be kind of like a bit more scared, but it's almost like the action that he's doing with the top of his chest I don't think would relate to the bottom as well. So that little movement that he's got with his foot from frame, about, when does it start, frame 22 to 29, 30ish there. I don't think that movement, you need it there, because it's not really adding anything to the performance that he's doing. If you want to emphasize that type of movement or make him feel a bit, that motion has to be broader. It would almost be like if he's got his feet and his feet are like that lying on the bed, and then he comes up and he curls them up so he's more in a ball later on. That's kind of like a motion that would be clearer, but it's like if it's so small, that little detail, I don't really think you need it at that point, and it saves you a few frames as well. I like the way that he leans forward a little bit, and he's got kind of like, he's bobbing a little bit as well. It's kind of like, it's nice to make him seem nervous like that. But I think that you can take, again, it's that foot movement that kind of like catches me out. And then when the father says under the bed, I think that you can, I don't think it's necessarily cliche, but it can be something like he's pointing, or he's in a slightly different pose than the one he's there. He seems a little bit relaxed, and when he's going under the bed, it's like under the bed, and kind of like just pointing a bit more with one of his hands might be a bit clearer to actually sell that idea. Just because I think that, you can strengthen this pose a little bit more on the father, because he's just doing everything right now with the head. And then when he kind of like looks over to screen right, the father on frame 25, have a look at throwing a blink in there. Again, he wouldn't look over a long distance keeping his eyes open. It's really tough to actually do. So when he looks, and he changes his eye line on frame 25, he'd look at the kid, blink, and look over to the other side. So if you just do a small 2-frame blink and actually move the eyes over, that's really going to help. Again, one of the things that happens is that his eyes kind of like come down, they don't fully close, and then he looks back up, and then he blinks again. So it's a bit weird. I'm not sure what's actually going on here in frame 33, because he kind of like looks down, looks back at the kid, and then turns around, and somewhere in between there you have to look at also where the position of the eyes are, because like on frame 36 he's completely cockeyed, his both eyes are looking inwards like that, and just make sure that that eye lines are very clear. Again, keep the motion simple. You know, if he's going under the bed, just have him blink and look over, because it's going to be very, you know, kind of like easy to do that rather than having to look one way very briefly, look back, and then look the other direction again. So then another thing is with the hand that he's got on frame 32, have a look at actually lifting that hand up a little bit more. So it's on his lap like that, and he's just going to lean over to the bed. Try to get this type of motion in the hand, kind of like going up, where you've just got a little bit of drag there, where it's kind of like resting on his hand like that, and he lifts it up a bit more. Currently it's just moving a little bit straight to where it has to go. So add a little bit of a breakdown to add a little bit of drag there around frame 32 as it comes up. And then, you know, as he comes down to the bottom of the bed, yeah, it's just a bit strange that he goes for the side of the bed and then kind of like goes down a little bit further in frame 29. But I think you can make that work. Just going to check the sound again. Yeah, I think it's one of those things that you need to just add a little bit of emphasis with there. Also, the brows currently don't have that much animation, but I think you can throw that in. I'd just have a look at, you know, especially the expressions on the father figure. I mean, the kid, it's very clear what his demeanor actually is, but the father, just because he's got these eyebrows kind of like in a very neutral position right now, you can't entirely tell, you know, what it is that he's thinking. So think about actually using, you know, some of the eyebrows as well to make his demeanor just a little bit clearer as well. And also have a look on frame 61 when he's adjusting his hand as well. The fingers kind of like just splay out and he kind of like goes flat. So currently you've got this, his hands against the bed, and it moves like that. And if he's like there and he's leaning, again, it's that idea of just kind of like adjusting his hand. So he'd kind of like roll either his hand completely in place like this, and also add a little bit of a compression with the fingers as he touches back down on the bed on frame 71, because that way, you know, you can always feel that he's actually touching something instead of actually just, you know, the hand just looks a little bit floaty on frame 71, and you've got plenty of frames still where you can actually do that. It's almost the same as, you know, on frame 71, the hand moves immediately to the position on frame 82. So again, it's one of those things, maybe for economy, you know, you can just save yourself, you know, a little bit of time and go from frame 59, where his hand's in a fist, and you could go straight to the pose in frame 80, you know, where he's got his hand on the side of the bed over there. And again, it's just one of those things of not adding, you know, that idea of keeping things simple, you know, just making it go from one position to another, because he's going to get there anyway. So why do it in 2 steps when you can just do it, boom, in 1? So let's go over to the next shot over here. I like the way that he looks over the bed, but again, it's one of those things where I think that in frame 73, you know, when he looks under the bed, it almost feels a bit more natural that he looks down, like the pose that you've got in 105, and then he bends over, you know, to look under the bed. So it's like under the bed, he looks over, blinks, and he actually starts bending down a little bit as he comes down. And, you know, it's just kind of like trying to break the motion up a bit more. So when he's kind of like under the bed, and then he kind of like bends over, I'd almost have him look and almost deliver that line, you know, at the top, you know, in the same pose roughly that he's got in frame 72, and then to bend down, you know, afterwards to the pose that you've got in frame 107, just again to kind of like keep things a little bit simple as well. And then when he looks back, that's really nice. I like the little nod that the kid gives. I think with the nod that he gives over there, I think it can just be maybe, yeah. No, that's good. That's really good. The way that he kind of like has, I just realized he's got one of the new characters as a toy. There we go. Okay. When he goes to no, Dad, don't. I like the anticipation he does here. But I think that here in frame 171, I think you can lean forward just a little bit more than you've got him here. So that he actually leans kind of like, he spreads his legs and he kind of like leans forward a little bit more, just so that you can get that hand a little bit further towards the camera a bit. I also like the way that he kind of like drops his legs and comes down as well. Just the thing that I think that you might want to do is split it up a little bit. So maybe take the legs from frame 173 and actually make them fall maybe just with with 2 frame difference, so that one, maybe I think the one that you're favoring is the screen right leg, just hits the bed before, and then the other one falls over like that, because currently you've got both legs pretty much hitting almost pretty exactly on the same frame. So have the right leg hit on frame 185, then have the left leg hit on frame 87, and then have him rise his pelvis up 2 frames after that, and you'll get a nice breakdown in the motion where you hit one leg, the other one, and then the hips come up so that he goes forward in that position. And in frame 192, I'd really emphasize that he's leaning on the toy. So I'd actually make the hand where he's got the toy, instead of being outstretched like that, to be a little bit closer, just so that when he leans on the toy, you can kind of like emphasize this shape on the toy itself, so it looks like he's leaning on it on the actual bed like that, and you'd have a little bit of an angle to an extent, even if it's covered in a few frames by the head because it's in the way. It still gives a nice idea that he's actually leaning forward, because currently the pose that he's got on frame 189, he's really leant forward, but it doesn't feel that he's got any weight on his arms, and to hold that pose he pretty much does have to put all of his weight down on his arm a little bit more. So you just need to emphasize it a bit more and get the angle between the wrist, the elbow, just a little bit clearer. And then I like the way that he comes forward, and also have a look at that the hands in the air, frame 192, and then when you cut into your next shot, frame 195, the hand's already on the bed and it's stopped with the kid. That's an area where you can just add a little bit more and complete that motion in the next shot. So it's, no, Dad, wait, hand comes forward, and as we go into the next shot, we can see from the other side the hand just settling on the bed like that in a couple of frames. So when he comes up over here, one of the things that I think that you can do here is just, you've got a very nice reversal of the spine that happens in frame 205. So between 200 and 205, you've got this nice reversal. You can push that further so that that reversal actually happens all the way. So when he gets up to frame, you do that reversal all the way to frame 214, so that we can see that all the way up there, and then you can make him sway a little bit at the top over there. And I'd say really try and keep him, you know, with that elbow as far down as you possibly can, even if it means that you have to move him with the pelvis further down than what he should be on the ground, just to really try and hide that hand all the way in shot. Because sometimes it's coming up and you're actually seeing the elbow just a little bit too much, because it's like, you know, everything at the beginning is really nice, and from frame 118 you can just see, you know, the elbow very much there in shot, and I'd almost try and keep it, you know, as far down as I can a little bit as well. I think also on frame 245 you can rotate his head so he's almost, you know, perfectly in silhouette, just to emphasize in the staging the nose a bit more, because that's where the finger's going, because currently it's pointing, but we want to kind of like just sell that idea of, you know, the direction of where's that finger going. It's going into the nose, and so he gets there very quickly, and if he goes bang like that and we see it perfectly in silhouette at frame 251, that's going to be so much stronger than the pose you have here. It's not bad, but I think you can just push that pose just a little bit more to sell that idea much clearer. And then also when he's pushing the finger up his nose like that, keep his head where it is until, you know, frame 272, you know, until he pulls it out, because I think it just feels a bit stronger if he goes and he's here, you know, and it's kind of like, it's got me, and then bunk, you know, you've just got that, you know, so small movement with the head, big movement with the actual finger. It just makes it a tad bit more gross, but also a tad bit funnier for the kid as well. You know, and then it's just one of those things that instead of kind of like pulling him forward like that, you know, you can just have him a few more frames, 5, 6 frames over here, wrestling with that, and then make him drop his hand like that over there. And then, you know, it's nice to have a hold at that position over there. And I think that in frame 297, you've got just this little eye dart that goes for him to the kid, and again to make that connection with his dad, you know, what I'd do would be, you know, to actually have him look over at the kid, and at that point make him smile. You know, again, just give us a moment where you can see him make eye contact with his kid, look over, smile, and then come over the bed. And again, I think that you've got the right expression, you know, in frame 317. You can just push that expression a little bit further forward, you know, just to kind of like make it happen earlier. And then at this point, you know, I'd say the eye line in your fourth shot, the kid has to be looking at his dad because currently he's looking off into the distance. Make him look, you know, get that eye contact between both of the characters really strong. At this point over here, he can turn his head a little bit as well. And yeah, it's just he's really looking off screen all the time here, and you really want to get the eye line to look at his dad much, 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 much clearer. And I think that, you know, one of the things that the dad can do as well is, you know, he has to kind of like get to the kid a little bit closer. I think one of the things that happens is that if he's got, you know, this bogey or whatever it is on his finger like that, he's going like this. I don't think it's as funny as he, you know, the finger kind of like going across the screen like this is not as funny as him going like that, you know, and kind of like wiggling the finger towards him, and you know, the kid kind of like pushing away from it, just because it's I don't know, I think it's something that's a bit more kind of like funny to actually do, you know, wiggle your finger at somebody instead of kind of like trying to haha hold it up like that. But again, that's my take on it, you know, so it's entirely up to you, you know, how you do it. But again, have a look at, you know, what that arm is actually doing, because he's coming up top and it's landing there, and when it lands on the bed the way that you've got it, you know, it would be bunk, and the hand would actually swing outwards like that when you hit contact. So pretty much look at your spacing just on frame, from frame 321 all the way to 28, you'd have a bit of a settle there. So depending on if he's pointing like that, or if you leave it the way that you have it as well, just remember to add a bit of a hit and fall just at the end there. And I think all the animation with the kid is really good. I like the way that they're laughing at the end. I think that's really funny and really cute as well. So yeah, I don't think that there's anything other than the kid getting up maybe a little bit faster from frame 321. You know, I'd already have him up, you know, standing up by that time pretty much. So he's kind of like moving a bit more away quicker as the dad comes down. But that would be pretty cool. And yeah, great work. Absolutely great work. It's a really, really, really nice scene. Anyway, so yeah, if you need anything else, or you want kind of like to post up another PR or something, you know, during the weekend, by all means post it up. I'll see I've had a little bit of time and I can actually get some feedback to you as well. So anyway, have a good weekend. It's looking great, and yeah, talk to you soon. Bye bye.